Hello, this is Kelly from Made to Shine Designs, and this is the tutorial for the circle flower. Now, I will tell you that this is just one version of a circle flower. This is a very popular way to make felt flowers, is to use circles like this. So you'll see lots of different variations with this, but this will kind of get you started to you know how to make them. I will probably have different, well, not probably, I know I will, when I am making more of my kits and putting multiple flowers into one kit, I will probably have different versions of a circle flower in those. So you may be watching this video and there maybe a slightly different variation. One thing is to use a felt ball as the center rather than another circle like we're going to do today. And you would cut the felt ball in half before you would start gluing any of the petals around the outside. But that's just one of the options. There's several different options for doing circle flowers. So in the kit though that you'll be receiving, you have received, you will have a 1-inch circle, and then you'll have 18 1.5-inch circles. Then you'll have this long felt strip and then 2 of these shorter strips. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do with those different pieces. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to take this long thin strip. I'm going to push all this stuff out of the way. And we're going to coil this up, and you're going to start it with a coil. I'm going to get tweezers. I do list that in the directions that tweezers are a great tool that can really help you to do a lot of these things that we do with felt flowers. See how it's easy for me just to grab that end and start twirling in, and that's it. You'll get a much tighter circle than if you just try to do your fingers. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of glue along the inside here, and then start at the end, and then just start twirling it around. And we're going to go like that. And once you do a little bit, go ahead and pull the tweezers out so you don't get stuck in there. Okay, and glue sticking out on this one is not going to matter. This is not going to show. This is just the base for your flower. So go ahead and for as long as you feel comfortable, go ahead and put some glue ahead of time. And then with your fingers, you just continue to roll that. Not super tight, but you do want it to be, a good size little roll there. Now I'm going to stop here because I want you to now get your 1-inch circle, the smaller circle that you have. It's important that you have this little coil be around the same size as this circle. This is going to be the base for the flower. We're going to be gluing this circle on top, and that is the center of the flower that you see in the pictures. So it's important that this is at least as big as this. It can be a little bit bigger, but it should not be smaller, because you want to be able to glue these petals and the center that we're going to be doing here around the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do it a little bit more, not go all the way to the end. Okay, okay, so I'm seeing right here that this is already going to be too small. I'm probably rolling it a little too tightly. So what I'm going to do in the kit is I'm going to make that strip a little bit longer so that you have enough room there. If I'm rolling it tightly, then you may do the same. So I'm going to make that strip a little bit longer when I do those kits. But let me get another strip so I can add on to that. I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you, because we want that roll to be actually, I'm saying that backwards, guys. We don't want it to be bigger. We want it to be, if anything, tiny bit smaller, but this is going to be too small. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one. And then I'm going to take this one that I did earlier, and I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, and just kind of keep testing as you're rolling to make sure that that is going to be around the same size as that circle. keep going. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to include in the kit 2 of these strips, and that way I will make sure that you have plenty. Okay, so that's a good amount right there. Do you see how that's not all the way to the very edge, but it's just a tiny little bit. So don't make that bigger. Don't make this be bigger. Like I said at the beginning, I'm sorry, I switched those directions, because then it's going to stick out. You're going to have a hard time having it not show. You want to make sure that it doesn't show. It's just the base underneath. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and snip that off. And then whatever this is just extra you can throw away. Okay, so then this is the base of your flower. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue this right on the top right there. Okay, so just put a good amount of glue there on the top and just center that circle right on the top. Okay, and you see how that looks underneath. There's just a tiny bit showing around the edges. Okay, and we have, now, if you're like me, I'm not a huge fan of the glue showing through like that. And I really put a little bit too much glue. So you learn from my mistakes while I'm doing these. It probably would have been better to just put a little bit of glue around the outside rather than that huge dollop right there in the center that kind of shows. I don't really like how that shows. So just learn from that mistake. Okay. Now the next thing, hold on. Getting my picture here, so I'll make sure I do it the same way. You can do these different ways, so that's why I'm kind of being careful I do it exactly the way that I did in the picture. So this is going to be your next layer around. Okay, so you can see that this fits pretty perfectly around the outside of that circle. So what we're going to do, we've done this before in other tutorials if you've done them with me. You're going to put some glue down one long side and you're going to fold this in half onto itself. Okay. You just want that to stick together well. Right, and then you're going to do some snips, and we have done this before with the bourbon rose flower that I showed you. If you've done that, not the bourbon rose, I'm sorry, the 3 cluster flower. I showed you, I did those 3. If you want to look at them in the pictures, if you haven't done that one before, if you want to look at the pictures on my website on Etsy, I did a wide snip, a real narrow strip, and then a medium snip. So on the strip, you want to kind of practice, if you want to, like some pieces of cardboard or some paper or something that you could kind of see what you want those snips to look like. But for this example, I'm going to do this one a wider snip, and then we're going to also snip this one, and we are going to do that one a little narrower snip. So I'm going to say about there, and then try to make all of them around the same. Now you're just snipping not quite to the base of the strip, probably about to where you glued, would be a good indicator of where you're going to stop with your scissors. And it is very important that you have scissors that are very sharp at the tip, and scissors tend to get dull at the tips. So it's really important that you have some scissors. These are the Olfa scissors. They stay sharp for forever, and they're very, very sharp on the tip, so I like them a lot. All right, now we're going to now glue that first strip all the way around that circle. So we're going to put some glue along the edge here, and now you see why it's important that base strip that we coiled up is that almost the same size as that circle, so that we have something to glue to right along the edge. Okay, and it should meet perfectly. You can kind of stretch it a little bit if you need to. I'm going to put a little more glue right here at the very end so that I can stretch that and have those two meet perfectly. Again, be careful not to use too much glue. You don't want that glue to show up here at the top. You keep it over here to the side. Now, a hazard with doing felt flowers is you are going to glue your fingers together. But it's just hot glue, so it's not like super glue. All right, so after you get that done, you kind of see how that looks. It's just a little bit. Now, remember that the coil was just slightly smaller, so that was wanting to kind of flip up there a little bit. So you can decide if you want, how you want that to look. If you want it to kind of flip up a little bit, or if you want to push it down inside the crack, however you want. But depending on how much space you left underneath the coil, that's, you're going to get that with that little bit of the circle underneath. So, okay, so then we're going to do the same thing with this one, only this time we're not going to fold this one. We're only going to snip this just like it is. So, but try to do about the same depth of the snip. You can just snip along, and like I said, I would make this snip a little different than that one. If you made that one skinny, you might want to make this one wide. It just is going to make your flower a little more interesting if those two snips are not really the same. Okay, so just go down and snip this real quick and try to make them around the same, like I said before. All right, now this is going to go around the outside of that, and again, you're just if you look at the bottom here, I'm just going to line those up like that. So see how it's just going to stick out above. It's a little bit wider than that first strip that we did, so it'll be a little taller on the flower. So go ahead, same thing, just take that and glue it right along that edge there on the bottom. And those two should also meet. And at the end, you may just need to stretch a little with your fingers so that that meets perfectly. And then you want to put some glue here right at the end so that those two stay together. You don't want, like what's happening right now naturally, see how those are pulling apart right there? We don't want that. We want them to come together like it's one single strip. We don't want to see where it started and where it ended when we get done. All right, so there you go. So that's the center. And in the picture, you'll see this flower as an example, but I actually, in the kits, this color is going to be the same as this color unless you specify differently. If you want to do it like I did it, that's fine. But normally I would do this color. I just had this out and just went ahead and cut it all the same. But that would all be the same color normally. If you did a felt ball, the center, you would have cut this in half so it could sit flat, but that would be your center instead. And this is a 25 millimeter felt ball. It's a little too large though. When I put that there, I can tell that those wouldn't have met going around the outside. So you need to do probably a 20 millimeter felt ball would be a good center, but that's another way that you can do this flower is to use a felt ball instead. All right, so now we're going to do 6 circles around each layer. This flower is going to have 3 rows of petals going around, alternating. So we're going to start, and what you're going to do when you glue that is you're going to, we've talked also about this before, you kind of want to give a little test to where it is you want that first row of petals to come up. Do you want them to be more shallow like this? Do you want them to stick up high? And that's going to determine where you glue this. Are you going to glue it to the bottom and around, or are you just going to glue it even with the bottom and have it stick up further? We're going to kind of do a medium, not too low, not too high. So I'm gonna overlap it just a little bit like that. And also, we've talked about in the past, you want this to look like a continuous kind of pattern going around here like this. So we don't want to end up with one that we have to glue to the outside like that. We want it to continue to lap like that, so that all of them, one's under, one's over, one's under, over. So when we do the first flower, it's always important, only glue on one side. Don't glue that side, so that when we get back around again, we'll be able to tuck it up underneath. So we're just going to put a little glue about like that, and we are going to let, like I said, let it loop over on the bottom a little bit and then up the side. And now from here on out, be careful that you do them all the same depth. And again, you'll, like I just did, you'll want to kind of test, but the first 3 should go about halfway around to show you how much to overlap them there. You know, do you want to overlap like this? Do you want to overlap like that? So just kind of do a little test so that you can see how much to overlap. And then this time we will put glue like in a little semicircle going around. Not too high, because again, you don't want that to show. Okay, and then make sure that you've got about the same height going around. Okay, and you just keep working your way around like that with 6 of the circles. And at that point, when you've done 3, kind of test to see that you've gone into about the center, so that you can adjust how you're overlapping a slight bit. You don't want to do too much. If you find that you have maybe done the overlap a little too shallow, you can go ahead and rip these off. I've shown you in the past. It's pretty easy to rip the glue back off and go again and adjust that. Oops, what I did was, when I went to glue that down, I kind of rotated it around, so then I got the glue where it's showing here. What you can do, if you can't pull it off, is take your scissors and just very carefully cut it off, so that your you know, the glue is cut off, but you're not cutting down into the felt too much. That's a good way to fix your mistakes when you do what I just did, because you never want that glue showing. All right, so we'll keep going around, and I'll say I probably could have overlapped a little bit more, if that helps you as you're doing yours. But I'm overlapping a little bit more when I'm doing these last ones, and it's not going to be obvious. So now I've left one left, and remember, we always want it to be over under. So this time this one's going to be over. You're going to lift this one up that you left unglued, so that it can be, see how it'll be a continuous loop going around. So go ahead and put some glue here and kind of center between those 2, and I could stand to have that pulled out a little bit more. And then you'll need to put some glue on that first one that you did, so that you can glue that to the back. Okay, so that's our first row. Going around. Now, I will tell you that when you do yours, some people like for these petals to be more up. If you want that, then don't glue them underneath, just glue them to the side and let that kind of stick out. As it sticks out, you can, at the end, you can go and you can snip that off. I kind of like my petals to lay down a little more, so that's why I wrap them around the bottom, but that's up to you. Okay, so then the next petal, the next row, we're going to do 6 again. And this time, you don't want to put it directly behind the first row. You want to have it where it's going to be between 2. So do you see how I'm going to layer that so it's going to be between those 2? And again, only do half. Don't do the left side. And then I make sure that that one just pokes up just a tiny bit more than the last one, so that each row is going to be a little bit bigger. You don't want it just to be hidden back there. And then you're just going to go around the same way. You're going to continue around the outside for that second row, kind of lining them up between that row before. The first row is the hardest. After that, you just kind of placing them in between. So it's the second and third rows are very easy. You just have to make sure you get them all the same height. Okay, and again, this one we want to be under over, so go back, lift up that very first one that you laid down so that it's over under, and then put some glue on that first one. And glue that one down. All right, and then the last 6, no shock. We're just gonna make this row a little bit higher and again go between. This flower to me kind of gives off kind of a magnolia maybe vibe, the way that they are layered like this and coming up. So I think this would be a pretty flower to try to get, and I just, guys, glued that down on that side. So I'm going to pull that back up. The first one, you always want to leave that left side not glued so that you can tuck it under. So I'm talking and not paying attention to what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to keep going around. And again, I'm placing them between 2 petals on the second row. And you'll notice that you have to kind of space them out a little further. See, they're hardly even overlapping at all in order to get it, but to get it where it's between these 2. But that's more important. It's more important that you get them between here than it is to overlap. If you overlap them all the same, then you're only going to make it maybe halfway around or so with the 6 petals. Obviously, it's getting bigger, and the space between the flowers has to get bigger also, or between the petals, I'm sorry. Okay, so see, that one doesn't even overlap at all to be able to make it where it's in between. That's okay. I will tell you also, as you're doing flowers that have multiple layers like this, you can get lost as far as where your next petal goes. Like looking at that, it's kind of hard to tell. I can kind of tell that this side doesn't have that third row. But depending on how intricate your flower is, it sometimes gets hard to tell, like where am I? Where was I? You walked away a minute or something, you came back and it's hard to tell. Always look at the bottom. The bottom will give away right away like where you are. You can see there's 3 rows here. There's only 2 rows here. So, I can tell that my next flower is going to go right there. I've got 2 left and they're going to go here and here. So, just if you get kind of lost, the back is always your best way to figure out where you are. All right, so between those 2 and then the last one is going to go there between those 2, okay? So again, you're going to lift that first petal that you did so that it can go under that one. And that was the one that I accidentally put glue there. So there's a little dry glue, but that's okay. Not going to show. All right. And there is your circle flower all done. And again, some people like for them to be more, try to kind of get it where the petals stand up like this rather than laying down. I kind of like the looks of it laying down. I'm also going to show you this petal right here. You see how it's standing up more than the others? And this is an example where it's so easy to fix. You can pull that glue off so easily, put some more, and then lower that down a little more. Kind of tuck it where it's gonna go down. And now there we go. Now that one matches the other ones better. And then last step is always get the glue spider webs out. You don't want to ever see any of the glue. Okay, I don't know how I got glue. This must have stuck from my finger somewhere. Again, that's not pulling off, so I'm just going to snip it. But that's kind of your last step, is just kind of check everything. See if there's any petals you want to try to move around. And you can do that too as you do each row, as you finish each row. Look at it and say, okay, were there any of those petals I want to lower or raise up? I've got glue stuck to my fingers every time I'm touching it. I'm getting it back on there again. Okay, so there you go. There is the circle flower. And when you're ordering, you will order, tell me which 2 colors you would like as your color options. Thank you.